Hello and welcome to session 5 in Let's Talk Family, Let's Be Family. The theme of the session tonight is mercy, no one excluded, and that's reflected on by Pope Francis in The Joy of Love. And to discuss it, I'm joined by Bishop Alan McGuckian. He's Bishop of the Diocese of Raphoe. Bishop Alan, it wouldn't be a communication for Pope Francis if there wasn't some serious reflection on mercy in it.
Mercy will probably be the one word above all other for which Pope Francis will be remembered. He has a profound sense of the Church as a centre of mercy as being the perfection of the goodness and the justice of God. And he invites us to see our Church always through the prism of mercy as a field hospital. We are in a war, and many of us get broken and bruised along the way, and we have to be able to find it in the Church, and our Church has to stretch itself in order to be a place that heals and heals the brokenhearted and tends them.
I was struck in reading this chapter that it came after, and we actually discussed ourselves for session 4, the ideal of Christian and Catholic marriage, a lifelong union between a man and a woman and open to children. And that is an ideal, but Francis is aware that for many people that ideal does not come to fruition. And he talks about the disposition we have for the people that doesn't happen, and very often through no fault of their own. Somebody can be married and their husband or wife can walk out and leave them, and they do heroic work, and yet they can feel excluded.
Absolutely. And Francis highlights that even in situations where there are all kinds of limitations, homes, families can be centres of love, centres of service, even centres of faith, even though they do not conform to the ideal to which we aspire and to which we are called. There's another beautiful thing that has been in the tradition since Pope John Paul II and before, and that is the notion of gradualness, the law of gradualness. Christ Jesus said, "Be ye perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect." And only he and his mother lived up to that. Everybody else, including the greatest saints, fell somewhat short, whether it was 90%, 95%, or some of us, we can be a way down, we're at 20%, 15%, 10%. But that's where we are. And the law of gradualness in our Catholic theology does recognise that a small step forward from where a person is, I think Francis says it, is more pleasing to God than somebody else's life that is running along perfectly well according to the moral law. So that there's a great insight there that I think we are invited to make use of and to stretch ourselves and apply.
The temptation can be, if you are living in, as you say, generally good position and moving along, that your disposition toward others can be one that is judgmental, and that they're not living up to the mark. And like Francis, that is just anathema to him. I think that comes through very strongly because he talks about the variety of things that make people just not perfect.
We need to remind ourselves every day that we cannot judge another person. I have no idea what's going on in your heart, or much less in the hearts of other people that I'm not well acquainted with at all. I cannot judge them. I can judge actions, and indeed the only way I can direct my own life is by having standard where and that is a judgment. But I cannot judge a person. We have no idea where the other person is, and Francis really invites us to recognise that and to only look on them with mercy.
Yes, it seems to me that in essence he's talking about a disposition that Catholics, priests, pastors, workers, catechists are called to have for the people they love and live and work with, and that primary disposition is one of compassion and care.
That's right. And then there's a tension. There is the ideal to which we are all called, and there's no escaping it, and the compassion that we have to bring to that. So how do we work that out in practice? I've met people whose marriages have failed, sometimes through very little fault of theirs at all, and they feel they feel that they have failed. And they feel that others in the church judge them to have failed. And just there's such a job of work for us to help counter that and to help balance that out, albeit never watering down the ideal. So it's a tension that we have to acknowledge, but we have to work on it. The first thing that is necessary for a discernment is a profound desire to be open to God's will. Okay, to set aside my own disordered attachments, my own need to justify myself, and so on. So, like, number one, a freedom, a genuine freedom for discernment. Number two, an absolute openness to the demands of the gospel. And number three, a humble respect for the teaching of the church. That's a given. Before you can claim that you have done a discernment, there are things that have to be in place. And then, from that position, Francis is saying a person can look at their life.
So there is a call in this to mercy and to really appropriating what is the faith, and rather than just letting it all wash over.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it is a big tension. Francis will also say in that whole section that this is no way an effort where certain people can have exceptions made, you know, in a way that is unfair. This is a profound way of entering into to a prayerful review of one's own life, of one's own conscience, and weighing up all of the factors involved, all of the factors including one's place in the community, and coming to a discernment about what the will of God is. And there is no guarantee that it will always go one way, you know. God treats every one of us as a unique individual as we go. Therefore, while the rules, they are absolutely, utterly important, each of us is an individual before God.
And another thing in this particular chapter that the Pope points to is the witness that people can be who are maybe not in the perfect union, and yet who are living, say, a single parent who is with endurance, rearing kids on his or her own to a very high standard without the support of another person. Great witness in that.
There are so many ways of people giving witness. There are so many ways of people being truly involved in the life of the church. I think some people see, you know, going to Mass and receiving Holy Communion that's a Catholic life, and if I'm not doing that, or if I'm not doing it perfectly, that there's something radically missing. Whereas the invitation is for so many people to be a part of the life of the church, to be a part of the service of the church, of the prayer life of the church, to attend Mass, and perhaps refrain from receiving Holy Communion because of their circumstances. There's something truly noble about the person in an irregular situation who serves the church and serves the life of the community in so many ways, and then in a real gesture of humility refrains from receiving Holy Communion out of respect for that radical church teaching. And we have to celebrate so many people who serve the church in so many beautiful ways, and who serve the world in so many beautiful ways, and whose lives do not conform to that perfect ideal.
It is a challenge, but because very often people in those circumstances do feel excluded, because, you know, you're married, say somebody leaves you, you're left, and really it appears sometimes for people that the only time they come to the church's attention is when they get into another union, and then whether they're going to communion. That
is just so true, and that is where the rubber meets the road on this whole thing. It's a challenge for everybody. It is a challenge for the individual who is in that anomalous situation to really own in their own heart the working of God in their lives, the richness of those things in their home, in their family, the richness of the love that they have for one another, the richness of the service that they give, the richness of the prayer life that they have, that they know without needing the rest of us to affirm, you know. And then at the same time, in our life, in community, we have to really affirm that people are truly part of the church. Pope John Paul spoke so strongly about this, that people must be made, people in irregular situations must be made to feel that they truly are part of the church, that they are not excommunicated. Now, that's a challenge for them, but even more so for us as the Christian community.
That leads on to another aspect that Pope Francis is concerned about. It grows out of this, that all this richness that we can talk about needs to be transmitted to people in the Christian community who want to get married, and to newlyweds to feel that support. It's not there in the wider culture. They're going to need to get it from their Christian community.
They really are, and this is a big challenge. I know so many people work so really well in pre-marriage courses, and very often I find that couples who went even reluctantly to pre-marriage courses find that there is a groundedness and a truth about the experience that's shared with them by people who have lived the married life for years. There's a richness in the Catholic vision, but there are so many other values being promoted in our world today that we have to really work on that. But you know, younger people today find it more difficult than we did when we were younger to pray together. You know, like in our day, we grew up, our parents said the rosary and we said the rosary, and that was just how it was, and that was how it was meant to be. I find when young people have come to me preparing to get married, that they speak so naturally and easily about relationship, about their love for each other, even about sex. But the one thing that is really hard for them to talk about is prayer. I ask them, have you prayed together? And almost invariably they get nervous because they find that really hard. There's a friend of mine has said that it's the most intimate thing you can do. And I believe if we could support young people entering into Catholic marriage, to recognise that praying together is just a central value. How they would do that, it could be in new ways, and it would have to be something that was real and simple and ordinary. If we could do that, we would set them up in a way that perhaps nothing else would do.
Sometimes maybe the rosary works. It had its role, because at least it was something that would take away that embarrassment, because everybody did it and you knew how to say it, you know. The
rosary really does work. You know, maybe one thing for couples who are just starting out, for whom the rosary would be too much first day out, to say the Our Father once a day together could be the most revolutionary thing they would do.